Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshaki. Let's move straight to the front pages of the dailies. I'm starting with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with corruption's ugliest face was under Buhari, says Kukah. Laments Nigerians sharing sovereignty with bandits, terrorists. Says Nigerians have lost faith in judiciary. We won't join issues with him. That's coming from Buhari's aides. Falana cautions Tinubu against sending wrong signals on anti-corruption fights. Note some visitors to the villas in court for looting. We have no democracy that delivers dividends to the people. That's coming from former President Obasanjo. Sitting judges should not preside over election tribunals. Afe Babalola is saying that. And there's a photo story here showing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, former Governor of Kebbi State, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, former Governor of Jigawa State, Abubakar Badaru, and former Governor of Kano State, that's Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, during arrival of President Tinubu from 63rd Ordinary Session of the Authority of Head of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, held at Guinea-Bissau in Abuja. Now, on page 27, we have presidential poll. APC already preparing for reruns coming from Labour Party. Anambra prepares for flood, trains 120 health workers. You can see that on page 11. Here, according to Adibe on page 17, it says Mesoma is a metaphor for the academic fraud that has eaten deep into the fabrics of the Nigerian society. Fraud is everywhere in the country, from exam fraud at every level, including at PhD levels, to cheating in offices and elsewhere. On page 31 in sport, Manchester United close in on Onana to replace David De Gea. Stories above on page 8. NECA to Tinubu. 2023 Finance Act needs complete reversal, not suspension. Edo resident protest failed Auchi Gara Ibilu Road. Security operatives intercept a vessel notorious for stealing Nigerian crude. Delta communities lament gas leakage. INEC court odds trial of suspended Adamawa Rec, Yunusa Ari. You can see these stories on pages 9, 12, and 8. Lastly, on the Vanguard newspaper, FGN securities up 19.9% to 10.2 trillion naira as states decline 5%. That can be seen on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. All right, away from that, let's move to the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with fuel smuggling persists in borders despite subsidy removal. That's coming from the customs boss. Custom CC rejigs border patrol. Others crack down on fuel smuggling cartels. NNPCL intercepts a Cameroon-bound vessel laden with 800,000 liters stolen crude oil. You can see that on page 2. And on page 9, Lagos Airport runway lights stolen, 7 suspended. Fayose will pay for working against Atiku, PDP, that's coming from NEC member. NLC meets governors over fuel subsidy palliatives. Lagos vigilantes torture colleague to death over phone. You can see that on pages 4 and 5. The stories above. It's illegal for National Assembly to fix members' pay. That's coming from Obasanjo. And lastly on the Punch, Tinubu can't appoint everybody minister, says Adamu. You can see that on page 30 of the Punch newspaper. Now let's move to the Nation. Nation is leading with 800,000 liters vessel with stolen crude intercepted, destroyed. NNPCL Securities raises bar in crude theft battle. 64 illegal crude joints are found. 77 legal refineries destroyed. You can see that on page 4. Tinubu targets a 30 trillion naira revenue in 3 years. Plans technology, data-driven approach. FIRS, customs, NIMASA, others won't be merged. You can see that on page 4. And here on page 5, court orders INEC to suspend Adamawa Rec prosecution. Ondo Assembly extends Akeredolu's medical leave indefinitely. That can be seen on page 27 and stories above. US waives export duty on cocoa. Economy Bowl gets a boost. You can see that on page 7. And lastly, on the Nation newspaper, EcoBank writes First Bank over Otudeco. How I acquired FBN shares. That can be seen on page 4 of the Nation newspaper. And that's all we have on the front pages of the dailies this morning. Join us after the break for the analysis. Welcome back. If you're just joining me, this is Today in the News on Vanguard Live. My name is Damlola Ogunshakin. Joining me to analyze the front pages of the dailies this morning is Mr. Dayo Akintobi. He's the publisher of Ilupeju Today, Lekki Today, and Ikeja GRA Today. Good morning, Mr. Dayo.
Good morning, Damilola. Good morning to all our viewers.
Yes, and before we talk about the stories, on the front pages of the dailies, I was going through social media yesterday, and I saw people saying that the electricity in some parts of the country has really, really improved. What do you think is the cause of it? Is it the new government or because of the dam? Because that's what some people are also saying.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to note that we actually have had more stable power supply recently. Yes. But also remember that at the beginning of the Buhari administration, the same thing happened. And they said, oh, it's the president's body language. That is a no-nonsense person. He's going to sack all the people at the NEPA and PHCN and all that. And as a result, everybody's sitting up. But the question we used to ask then was, have they added more capacity? Are they generating more? Is there more to distribute? So really, if it's body language or if it's because new administration and not because they have addressed the underlying issues, then it's just a fake improvement. It will revert to normal in a short while. So perhaps maybe the rains have raised the water levels at the dams, and so they can generate a lot more electricity through hydro because there's more water available from the rainy season. I think that's a more credible reason than to believe the administration, because they've not. Administration is new. It's not invested anything in the power sector yet. So where's the improvement coming from? It's not a miracle or it's not magic. So I don't buy that it's the new administration.
And we can't wish for everyday rain. So let's just obey.
So let's just enjoy this because it probably won't last for too long.
Yes. Now let's go straight to the stories on the front page of the dailies. And we're starting with what Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Sokoto said. That's Matthew Azan Kukah. Yesterday, the Nigerians, he said Nigerians have witnessed the worst phase of corruption under the last administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. As a Nigerian who was here to witness the Muhammadu Buhari administration, what do you have to say about this?
Well, Bishop Kukah has come again. He has never known how to bite his tongue about speaking out, especially speaking out against government and speaking out in favor of the common man. So this is no surprise that he has said this. And truth be told, to give him credit where credit is due, even throughout the Buhari administration, he spoke up. He was never once quiet. So what he was saying yesterday is not anything new. He's been saying it for the last 8 years. But it was all the more telling yesterday that he said that he gave his verdict, which I think was quite damning, that this has been the most corrupt regime or the regime that has institutionalized corruption a lot more than any other regime. He did put a proviso that corruption didn't start under the Buhari administration, and it didn't even start in the administration before that. It's always been a part of us. But what he's saying is that it got worse during the last administration. And he gave specific examples. He talked about this insurgency, banditry, terrorism that is holding the country hostage. He said something about we are sharing our sovereignty with bandits. So he put that all at the feet of corruption, because how come these people are not spirits, they're not ghosts? How come we're not able to flush them out and put the insurrection down? And then there's issues of oil theft that requires collusion within the government. People cannot just go and start stealing thousands and thousands of barrels without having inside collaboration. Then if you look in the aftermath of the Buhari administration, look, his CBN governor indicted and under arrest. His EFCC chairman indicted and under arrest. There's speculations about his attorney general, that there were a lot of issues with him as well. He too may be indicted. So when you look at the level of senior officers who have been called out for corrupt practices, senior top officials within the administration who have been called out for suspected or alleged corrupt activities, it lets you know that it was systemic within the administration. And so what Bishop Kukah was saying is not It's not strange to any of us. But what makes it all the more damning is the fact that the Buhari administration came in on an anti-corruption crusade. That was the main thing coming in or campaigning in 2015. I remember it was a tripod: insecurity, corruption, and the economy. And that corruption, because Buhari has always been known as you know, a person who abhors corruption completely. So the assumption was that during his regime, he would fight it or wrestle it to a standstill, and people would be too scared to put their hands in the cookie jar under a Buhari administration because they knew he would bring the hammer down very heavily upon them. But it looks like the former president, just looked the other way and really couldn't have been bothered. We heard of EFCC prosecutions and convictions, but they were all underlings, minor people. I mean, they trot out figures. Oh, we've prosecuted 20-something thousand people. We've got 18,000 convictions. But who are the big names? Some of the big names we saw that went down, they all found ways to get out. I know some former governors who got convicted were serving time, got technicalities and got out. And others, their cases are dragging on interminably. So it doesn't look like the fight on corruption during the Buhari administration was a wholehearted fight. It was a half-hearted fight. It wasn't a serious fight. And that now allowed corruption to flourish and to gain wings and become even fester even more. So I think that's what Bishop Kukah was saying. He was absolutely right.
Okay, another thing he said that caught my attention is that he said nobody is excited about being a Nigerian. Even if they were presidents or senators, adding that the country is literally being held hostage by people. So he said nobody is excited about being a Nigerian.
Well, you look at the rate at which people are trying to get out, really. I mean, and it tells you that people are disillusioned with Project Nigeria at the moment. But I'm one of those who is of the school of thought that we can't give up on Nigeria. It's the only country we have. And where the country is a product of us, the people. We, the people, are the ones who have made it what it is, and it's we, the people, who have to fix it. So if no one is proud to call themselves a Nigerian now, it's because of what we ourselves have represented as Nigerians over the years, and it's up to us to sanitize that perception of the fact that being a Nigerian is not a salubrious thing at the moment. So I know that there are many people like me as well who have not given up on Project Nigeria, who are not disillusioned and who are not going anywhere, and who will knuckle down to weather the storm and try and bear it till things improve and play our own part. We'll all contribute our own quota to the improvement of Nigeria and to creating the Nigeria of our dreams. So yes, quite a number of people are not quite happy with the way the country is. But rather than run away or rather than complain about it, I think we should all band together and see what we can do individually and collectively to improve our lot.
Okay, so another thing they said, both him and the human rights lawyer said, was that most of the people trying to fight for the minister seat or for appointments now, they have cases of corruption. Is it there before the EFCC or the ICPC, and that we must go back to the era where you will not be appointed to a position of authority if you're under EFCC or ICPC. Can this be done in this era?
Well, you see, there's that legal dictum or that legal maxim that says you're innocent until you're proven guilty. But there's a moral imperative that says if you're under a cloud of suspicion, whether the matter has been adjudicated or not, if you're under a cloud of suspicion, the honorable thing to do is to excuse yourself from positions of trust and responsibility until your matter has been settled, right? But in Nigeria, see, this is the seamy side of politics. I mean, look at the person we elected as Senate president. He has cases in the EFCC as we speak, cases from when he was governor of Akwa Ibom, cases from when he was minister of Niger Delta Affairs, cases of when he was head of the Niger NDDC Niger. He's got cases all over the place to do with financial misappropriation. And yet, we still put him as number 3 man in the country. So, if we can look away at the highest echelons of power in terms of saying the fact that they are under investigation or there's a case against them, as long as they've not been convicted, we don't care. I would like to see a situation whereby, even if not by law, but by convention, that anybody who is under investigation or under accusation, whether they've been convicted or not, I think the honorable thing to do is to opt out of public office until the case has been adjudicated, especially when you look at it, those that are being investigated by the EFCC and the ICPC, it's usually always about misappropriation of public money. You don't want to put the same person in a position where he's responsible for public funds. Even if he's not been convicted, the fact that there's that shadow over him, I think that should exclude him. And maybe we have to change the constitution to reflect that if you've been under, or if you are presently under indictment and your case has not been fully adjudicated, you have to excuse yourself from any appointment or whatever until your case is done. You have to have a clean slate. But people are hiding under that thing about innocent until proven guilty. They haven't convicted me. I'm not guilty. No, they haven't convicted you, but there's an open case against you. That's 50-50. It could go against you. It could go in your favor. Who knows? So until we know, it's better for you to remove yourself from the process. But look, part of that report said most of the people who are trooping to Aso Rock now, seeking ministerial positions, they all have one allegation or another against them. People will say, show me anybody in Nigeria that doesn't have a skeleton in their closet, that doesn't have something they've done wrong before, and we just got to forgive and move on and this and that. But when it comes to other people's money, when it comes to being responsible for 220 million lives, we can't take a risk with having people of questionable integrity at the helm of our affairs. It's just not right.
All right. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo on Monday lamented that most of the people who are supposed to operationalize the Nigerian constitutions are the ones undermining the country's democracy. And he
Yes.
gave an example
Yes.
of the National Assembly, said they fix their own salaries.
Yes.
Now, who is supposed to fix their salary if they don't?
No, by constitution, that Revenue Mobilization Commission is responsible for determining. Remember the furor a few weeks ago when that same commission announced that it was reviewing the salaries of the president, the vice president, all the top people in government, and there was a loud outcry. And it said they hadn't had salary review in so many years, and people were saying, at a time when we are suffering from fuel subsidy removal, this and that and the other, why is that the time you should be trying to increase the salary of government workers? And I remember what President Tinubu's spokesperson said at that time was that it was not him. He had nothing to do with increasing the salary, that it was the commissioner. So if the president doesn't have the power to review and increase his own salary, and it's that commission that can do it, the same thing applies to the legislature. It applies to everybody in government. It is the revenue mobilization and fiscal whatever committee that's responsible. But because our legislators pass the laws, including the budget that talks about what money we have and how to spend that money, right? That's a loophole, because since they're the ones that do the budget and approve the budget, well, they're the ones that approve the budget, they have the power to make line item changes. So based on that, they can write in whatever they want for their salaries. And that's what President Obasanjo was saying yesterday, is that even if there's a constitutional loophole that they are exploiting, how about morally? At a time like this, when Nigerians are groaning under the yoke of high fuel prices, high commodity prices, high food prices, lack of foreign exchange, high exchange rates and all that, this is a time when government should be reducing its size, reducing its expenditure, because we the common people shouldn't have to make sacrifices, and then our leaders don't make any sacrifices. So I think Senate President a few days ago announced 31 aides. So many of them have so many assistants. They're looking for 2 billion, 10 billion to use to pay their assistants. So we don't see any sense of sacrifice from our leaders, from a standpoint that they have the moral right to ask us to make sacrifices. So what President Obasanjo was saying is, apart from the fact that this is not the right time for anybody to be increasing salaries, the point is you don't even have the legal authority to do so, because of that loophole that allows you to tinker with the budget. Doesn't mean that you should usurp the powers of the Revenue and Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, who is the one that's constitutionally empowered to do it. But the bottom line is this: I don't think it's really about who has the authority to do it, as much as what is proper now. Are people supposed to be fixing salaries higher at a time when the whole country is in dire straits? Or are people supposed to be trying to reduce things? Why are you appointing 31 assistants? And why are you buying 14 cars in a convoy? And why do you have 12 planes in a presidential jet fleet? And and why do you have 46 ministries? And why, all of these things are sucking money. And I saw one example. A former governor of Ogun State, who is now in the Senate, said a few days ago they should suspend his pension as governor. These are some of the kind of examples we need. He said, suspend my pension as governor because I'm collecting salary as a senator. So let me not drain more resources by collecting double salary. That's the honorable thing. That's the kind of thing we're looking for from our leaders. We want to see more people make those kind of sacrifices so we know that it's not just us, the common man alone, who is being asked to make sacrifices, but our leaders are also reducing the expenditure of running government too.
All right, you're talking about us trying to make sacrifices and not increase the salaries. Now, Nigerians they've lost trust in the judicial system, and now they're making case for the judges, saying that their salaries they should give them a better pay package because they don't find going to the bench attractive again because of the poor pay.
Well, yes. See, to keep corruption at bay, you have to remove temptation, right? I mean, there's some people who, no matter how much you pay them, they will still be susceptible to inducement. But by and large, if you if you give judicial officers the right terms and conditions of employment. Because remember, these before we don't call them what is it, my lord and your honorable and this for nothing. Before they became appointed judges, they had proven themselves to be men and women of integrity, men and women of acumen, men and women of wisdom. The judges are wise, so we don't expect these kind of people to just frivolously be reckless, be extravagant, be living above their means. But when they're not well paid enough to have a decent quality of life, it opens them up to temptation. So yeah, the right thing to do, and I commend Lagos State for that. In the days of Governor Tinubu in Lagos State, through his attorney general, then former vice president Yemi Osinbajo, they revamped the terms and conditions of the Lagos judiciary, both in terms of salaries, in terms of their courtrooms, in terms of legal processes. They reformed the whole judicial system to where in Lagos you are almost sure you can get justice because the quality of jurisprudence in Lagos State is very high. Because they pay their judges well, they pay their magistrates well, they give them official vehicles, their courtrooms are air conditioned, they have stenographers and court reporters as opposed to writing everything manually, furiously by biro. They've modernized the judiciary in Lagos State. And so the judges they apply themselves diligently to dispense justice fairly and equitably. So it's true, we need to replicate that nationally because Nigerians in general have lost faith in the judiciary. Look at some ridiculous judgments that have come out of even the Supreme Court recently. The one where somebody who didn't even run for a primary suddenly becomes a candidate. The one where a person who was fourth in the election is suddenly, based on technicality, made the governor. But at the same time, it's that same Supreme Court that also gave us succor during the Naira redesign policy. Remember when Emefiele was that diddling and refusing to extend the deadline for the old Naira notes? The Supreme Court made a judgment to save our lives, So you look at it and you say they can do that good one, but at the same time, they did many bad ones. So Nigeria doesn't have much faith in the judiciary. And it's a shame because the judiciary is supposed to be the last bastion of hope for the common man. If you don't have any hope, we're finished. What's the point of democracy if you can't rely on the judiciary to dispense justice? So that's the issue.
Now let's move away from that. The acting Controller General of the Nigerian Customs Service, Adewale, on Monday vowed a heavy clampdown on oil thieves, insisting that the nation cannot afford to let saboteurs take over the economy. For a long time, they've been talking about this clamping down on these people stealing the crude oil from the country.
Well, I don't really understand because I look at even before subsidy removal, smuggling was a problem at the borders, right? And I used to say, what we need to do is to strengthen our institutions. Let's not blame the failure of customs, the failure of immigration, the failure of police, the failure of army. Let's not blame that or put the fallout of that on the common man, which is ultimately what has happened. But my view is, if we are ineffective or inadequate with the institutions that are supposed to police this, they say, oh, we have a 3,000 kilometer border, you can't police all of it. Nonsense. Then what do we have a customs for? You're supposed to be able to plug the loopholes. So the question I wonder now is, fuel subsidy removal was supposed to kill the incentive to smuggle, because once they removed it, the price went up. the price is now at par with what is being sold for in the neighboring countries. Remember, before they removed fuel subsidy, the price was so low that it made more sense to take it to the countries that are selling market price because you have a wider margin. So we're selling 187, it's 600 in Cotonou. Why should you buy it for 150 and sell for 187 here when you can take it across the border and sell for 600? But fuel subsidy removal was supposed to make the price go up to where it's now at par with all those neighboring countries. So what's the benefit to still be smuggling it, because you're not going to make any money from taking it out there? That is for refined petrol. Now, in terms of crude oil smuggling, that is an outgrowth of crude oil theft, because now all of a sudden they've stolen this thing from the pipelines. They have to find, like, for example, we read that a vessel was interdicted that was taking crude oil to Cameroon, a Nigerian registered ship, and clearly that oil was stolen. But I don't think the smuggling that customs is talking about at the borders, the land borders, is of crude oil. I think it's of finished petrol. And that's why I really don't understand. So perhaps there's some corruption going on here. Perhaps there's some negligence going on there. But bottom line is, I've always viewed it as an excuse for them to say our borders are so porous because it's several thousand kilometers of land. You can't police it all. I think that's rubbish. I think that the customs and all the other law enforcement agencies have the wherewithal to be able to discourage this practice. I mean, you catch people, you make examples of them, you prosecute them, you give them hefty penalties. It will discourage a large part of that trade. And then even the customs needs to look within itself, because many of its officers are complicit. They know who those smugglers are. They know the routes they pass through, but they're settled already, I believe. And that is why it seems like this scourge cannot be arrested. It's because the officers are looking the other way because they are complicit in the trade as well.
That's taking me to this, 800,000 liters vessels with stolen crude intercepted.
Yes.
The one that is going to Cameroon.
Yes.
Now, how can these 800,000? I mean, we're not talking about 1 liter or 10,000 liter. We're talking about 800,000 liter.
Yeah.
Leave without,
It has to be, because, like you said, it's not a couple of cups, it's not a couple of barrels. 800,000 liters, before you can siphon that or divert it or bypass it from the mainstream, it's a professional job. We've got pipelines that carry the crude from where it is being brought up from the ground and carry it to where it's going to be transported. And a professional diversion has been done that can extract 800,000 liters. I promise you, that cannot be done without people in NNPC playing a part. It can't be done without people in NNPC knowing about it, because, like I said, 800,000 barrels is not a joke. So 800,000 liters of barrels, no, it's not liters, I think it's barrels of crude oil. So it goes back to exactly what Bishop Kukah was saying yesterday, that corruption is rife. Mm-hmm. The only way that kind of quantity of oil can come out of our system. I saw a video the other day that showed a command center that NNPC has somewhere that has live screens that shows where all the oil installations are. And from that screen, they can see the points where sabotage is going on. They can see it from those screens. I think maybe they have remote cameras or drones at all these installations, and it's transmitting information back to them in these screens in the command center. Maybe somewhere in Bonny Island or something. I don't know. I saw this live and direct on a video. And it means NNPC is aware of where the theft is going on, when it is going on, and they are saying they are helpless to stop it. No, that's corruption at play any day.
All right, still talking about for NLC met governors over fuel subsidy palliatives. Subsidy palliatives, I mean, we understood what went on during the COVID-19.
Yes.
So do you support the subsidy palliatives?
I think some measures should have been put in place even before the subsidy was removed so that it would have cushioned the effect. But yes, absolutely, because we've come to rely on cheap fuel. It's pretty much probably the only real dividend of democracy that we get directly as people. Yes, government provides services. There's education, there's health, there's roads, there's police, there's this. But in terms of direct benefits, direct to the people, that cheap fuel is what we've been enjoying for the last 60 years. And that cheap fuel translates to low food prices, translates to low rents, translates to so many different things. It has an impact on every facet of our lives. So when you now want to remove it, the effect is too jarring on our well-being when you just pull the rug out without softening the change that we have to experience. So people came up with different ideas. You should increase wages. You should give government buses, bring in more government buses, make the rails, set up rail systems. All these things will be cheaper than paying for private transportation, fix the roads, various ideas that people came up with, give transport allowance to workers. There are different things you could do. At one point, government was saying it would give 5,000 naira to the most vulnerable Nigerians every month for 6 months. So it doesn't matter what the nature of the palliative takes. The most important thing is to make the transition easier for the average Nigerian. Problem is, remember what happened in COVID? They gave palliatives. The palliatives ended up in private warehouses, in the homes of powerful politicians. So there's a transparency issue and an honesty issue about, okay, so how do we distribute? How do we make sure that whatever palliatives are provided go to the most vulnerable and to those who need it, and they are not just hoarded and abused by the powers that be? That's the big question.
All right. Lastly, I would like you to comment on this. I mean, security concerns. There are security concerns in busiest places in Nigeria, and that includes one of Nigeria's busiest airports, Murtala Muhammad. They've alleged unknown persons have allegedly, carted away the recently installed airfield lighting system at the domestic runway of the airport. What do you think about this?
First thing that struck me when I saw that was, who wants to use runway lights in their house to light up to light up their perimeter fence? I mean, runway lights are such specialized equipment that they can't really be used for much else other than runway. So I don't know what these people are thinking who are doing this kind of thing, but it just goes to show that there's impunity in the land, to where people think they can do whatever they want to do and get away with it. And people are ready to do anything for money. There's so much hardship out there. Somebody probably told those people that, the bulbs, you can sell them for 100,000 and whoever. I mean, but there's probably no more than 10, 15 people in Nigeria who could use those bulbs for whatever, because they're specialized equipment. So it really doesn't make sense. That's the same thing you think when you hear about, they removed iron rods from Third Mainland Bridge, they removed this, and then you wonder, and then they go to NEPA transformers and cut cables at the risk of their lives. They go and cut cable. First of all, it's a sign of desperation. People are hungry and they're ready to do anything to get money. Then secondly, apart from this sign of desperation, which is a socio-economic issue, and there's a school of thought that says, look, you want to reduce the incidence of crime, you want to reduce the prevalence of theft, improve the welfare of people, get jobs for the youth, keep that is because of their idle. That's why it becomes a devil's workshop. But once you improve socio-economic conditions, people will stop all this nefarious and illegal activity. So there's that school of thought. So you ask yourself, well, okay, so if it wasn't about making money from stealing the runway lights, is it just general insecurity that's coming to play here? Are there some saboteurs who either want planes to fall out of the sky, or want planes can't land because they can't see visual, they can't visualize the runway because there's no lights? I mean, what were they up to? Because now you see bandits, terrorists, and insurgents and kidnappers. They're doing all kinds of various activities that just don't make any sense in terms of them wanting to perpetuate whatever their mission is, whether it's to make money, whether it's to push an ideology, push a religion. They do all kinds of things. So who knows? Removing those runway lights may have been a security threat or a security initiative to harm some people. Who knows? So yeah, it's all on our security architecture to do the best they can to stop all this.
I think that's a better explanation than using the runway light in your house. All right, let's end this on a lighter note with Mr. and Mrs. And the first person speaking today is Mrs. Mrs. says, I'm sorry for calling you a fool. What do you want me to do for you to forgive me completely? And Mr. replied, go to your village. No, go to our village and report yourself to the elders, or prepare meals for 3 months from your purse.
From her
purse.
Mr. wants to extract real penance from this woman. From her purse, prepare meals for 3 months. Wow. Okay, well, we'll beg Mr. to temper justice with mercy. Mrs. shouldn't have called him a fool. That's all right. I mean, no, you shouldn't call your husband a fool. But let's beg Mister to temper justice with
No, I,
mercy.
I think she will want to
Maybe
go to a
1 month.
village.
Maybe 1 month. Maybe she should cook from her purse for 1 month instead of 3.
Or she might pick the going to village
Yes, she
option.
just might do that.
Thank you very much for joining us this
Pleasure
morning.
is always all mine.
And this is where we have to draw the curtain. My name is Damlola Okunshaki. Do well to like and follow us on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. On Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Our WhatsApp number is also displayed on your screen. Also, don't forget to follow us on Threads. Have a lovely day.